All right, and welcome back. So we are jumping right in to round two. We're getting these things going, and I've got a new friend with me, and well, new, but you've seen him already. Talk to us a little bit
Wait,
about who you are, bud.
hello. My name is Liam. I'm my wife and I create content under the Lumiteers. We go to the occasional Lorcana event, so I don't know. You may have seen us around, but I'm super excited to be here at SSG for the first time. Like I can't tell you how excited I am.
Well, we're excited to have you. We love everything that you do, and just the energy that you bring to the game, the passion that you bring to everything about the game. So I'm very excited to talk about this game with you, though. A couple of interesting decks here. We've got Dan versus Eric, and as you probably can tell by looking at their shirts, they are both on the same team. They're both based out of Southwest Florida, overall, like on the Tampa side, and they make their rounds over here because they love SSG. They love coming out here, and they're both great friends of SSG. So we're excited to have them on stream. However, Liam, they have the unfortunate mispleasure of having to make one of their friends lose while the other friend gets to win.
Oh, I know. It's always such a bummer. I mean, not only do you have to knock out or knock down, somebody that you're hoping does well, but going into these events, oftentimes the first few rounds you're playing blind. You don't know the other player, you don't know their deck. But in this scenario, there's a high likelihood that each one of these players knows, at the very least, the colors the other is playing. At worst case, their entire deck list, but they also know their tendencies, how they play, perhaps their cues.
Yep.
So these players knowing each other this well, this will be a lot different matchup than we usually see in round two of these big events.
Yeah, normally they're testing they're testing with each other to prepare for other people, and now it's like, wow, we're back at the testing tables, and here we see Diablo coming down. So we know that Eric is on that Emerald Steel deck, and this is indicative of that discard style deck, as we see that the hand has been revealed.
Yeah, this is a fascinating matchup. I'm willing to bet, coming in here into the Sapphire heavy meta, both of these players tech their decks to play into a control style meta. So Ruby Sapphire, Sapphire Steel is what they're expecting to play. And now both of them are going against each other instead. And so it'll be interesting to see how they navigate this. And a fairy ship coming down over on Dan's side.
Oh my goodness. A fairy ship
A fairy
in
ship.
Amethyst Steel?
A fairy ship and Amethyst Steel. Fairy ship is a kind of a fun card. These 1/4 locations, and then we see Hidden Cove there on the other side. These 1/4 locations, popped up in Inklands where we first saw versions of these, and they weren't super popular at the time. They appeared in some of the starter decks, but then recently they've kind of made a comeback. And Fairy Ship is a card that I'd never seen played until a few weeks ago, but now it seems to be rising in popularity.
Yeah, and can we please take note of Dan's hand? Like looking at that hand cam, that's not the only location in this deck.
So
This
many.
is
Look at that.
kind of wild.
Yeah, Hook Forceful Duelist now to the Inkwell. Let's see if we continue this location ramp.
Oh,
we
my
do.
goodness. Okay.
We do. With the Seven Dwarves mine.
Liam, who needs characters?
Not Dan, apparently. Well, we'll see if it works out. So this could be a challenge because these steel decks, these green steel decks, there's plenty of little tech characters. There's cards like Diablo, and sometimes Prince John sneaks in there, and others that do effecty things. But the trade-off is there's not a lot of strength. I say that, and then one of the best statted turn 2 characters comes down on turn 3. It's Smee, 3/3. Putting him in that Hidden Cove will allow him to last a little bit longer, and that'll do some work clearing out locations.
It will, and we all love a Bumbling Mate, don't we? Bumbling Mate is such a great 2-drop. We love him. We love you, Mr. Smee.
One of the best cards in the game, and a little understated. I don't know if people realized when he first was revealed, but he has some staying power in the meta.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting to know because I'll tell you, at least from a case study perspective, when I first saw that card, I have to admit, I'm like, this is okay, and then it was used against me, and I'm like, oh no, this is bad.
Oh no,
this is bad.
But he doesn't have any. It doesn't matter. He still gets multiple quests out of him.
Yep. Okay, so we see Dan is thinking through and deciding, kind of what we call this as being in the tank here, kind of seeing the play lines, trying to be able to look into the future for each of the cards in the hand to decide which one is going to put me in the best position going into the next turn.
And normally we're kind of like prognosticating, trying to figure out what they're going to do. But I have no idea what this build is that Dan's playing. So I can't even guess what the right lines are here. And I haven't got a good look at his hand either, other than seeing a lot of sideways cards.
Absolutely. But we do see the pirate chef come down, John Silver. He did target that Mr. Smee. So Mr. Smee will not be able to attack that mine, at least not this turn.
At least not this turn. And that's effective. I mean, all indications are Dan is hoping to get a lot of locations on the board and get them to stick
Yeah.
and just overwhelm the opponent with all that willpower that they have to remove. So being able to prevent Smee from challenging in there is a pretty big deal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we do see. Okay,
Okay.
interesting. So the cool thing about steel decks is they do a lot of things that stop each other from doing stuff. So Dan told Eric, "Hey, I don't want this guy to challenge," and then Eric said, "Fine, cool. Well, then you're not going to play actions.
I don't want you to play actions."
Yeah. So let's see though. Then you can't do this.
Yeah, which could be impactful. I mean, because at this point, trying to get some of these characters off the board with some of the steel-based removal is something that Dan may want to do, and so that Pete could make a difference here.
Yeah.
And then, importantly, we know in this set there's a very I think is being played more and more in these colors is this Pete shift, the Pete Space Pirate.
Space Pirate.
And so we've now set up that we're setting up that shift line there.
Oh yeah, and Space Pirate is quite scary. We don't see him yet, but we do see another bumbling mate. Okay, and the decision is being made by Dan to start plucking away, just dealing damage to characters, using that mind to its effect, and then saying, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let my John Silver be banished if you banish your Mr. Smee.
If plucking away was a bird-based pun, I appreciate it.
It absolutely was.
I can't let that go. That's too good.
It absolutely was. All right, so we do see Eric now thinking through.
Let's see. I haven't got a good look at his hands. So let's see which way we go here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it's it says a Storm Rage on
with 2 damage on that Smee. Draw a card.
All right, and then Pete. Yeah, Pete is slowly plugging away, saying, "Hey, there you go." Yep, and we deal with problems. That's right, because Pete is in fact a 4 strength character right now. So that was exactly what he needed in order to get rid of that
hidden cove doing so much work.
Yeah, you see, that's what I get for in the beginning talking all that bad stuff about hidden cove. Boy, oh boy, did I learn.
Yeah, protecting that Diablo right now, and let's see. I mean, locations are great in certain scenarios. Unfortunately, I mean they're kind of passive. You throw them out there, you hope your opponent can't respond. So, depending on how many we have in this deck, there might not be a lot of options to be aggressive with the board here. And
of note, I mean, the other thing that locations kind of do that is oftentimes unspoken is it forces your opponent to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, which can potentially set you up for a better late game. So because Eric is forced to play characters that can deal with locations better, might he have potentially not played something that can shift later on? Might he not have played something that he didn't want to see go away later because he needs to just deal with the problems that are on board? So there's always a bit of a question, like how important is the distraction piece of this?
Yeah, that's well said. So there are a few lines I can think that are good here. We do have a library in hand, so it's not. And we have a library in the inkwell.
Yeah, there you go.
So we could have moved over there. It's 8 lores or willpower is a lot to deal with, and then you get a card off the Smee potentially. But you also have the Fox in these colors, and so if you're looking to clear up that hidden cove, which I think Dan would love to do, you can challenge in with the Smee and then bounce it with the Fox, which would be a fantastic play here. And I think that might be what he has.
We do see that there is a dock in hand as well.
No, it's the John Silver.
There's John Silver. There's the dock choosing to discard the chef John Silver and drawing 2 fresh cards. Another location we see in hand.
Yeah, and that John Silver, I mean, I'm not surprised to see him in this deck with all the locations that we've seen. That John Silver can get out of control very quickly.
Yeah,
we'd love to have something on board right now with him, but John Silver on his own right now is an innocuous kind of 3/3/1 lore. But with what Dan has in his deck, he could drop 2, maybe even 3 locations in a turn, and all of a sudden that John Silver is
we're talking resist 2 plus 2 lore. I mean, that's not what you want to see, especially playing with a steel deck. Steel is so good at just taking pot shots at characters, but the more resist that's built up on the character, the less those cards matter, and that could present a big problem, which is exactly why Eric is immediately putting damage onto that John Silver. He knows that for every turn that passes, that thing is going to get scarier and scarier, and we don't want that.
No, and another note, he is a captain, so he did protect the Smee there, forcing the challenge to get that Smee off the board there. So great play there, doing a lot of work. And now we're going to get an Ursula Deceiver. Taking a look at the hand, there are, surprise, 2 locations, no songs. So we saw a Fairy Ship and then I think another 7 Dwarves Mine. That 7 Dwarves Mine, though, particularly impactful right now with a Knight on the board. So we'll see if that does work there. But we're going to get rid of one of them here.
We are, yes, absolutely. And we see, so All right. Oh, okay. What are we? We're turning some stuff sideways. We're drawing. All right, Dan. Let's see what you can do. We see the giant cobra is in Dan's hand. That is a nice, an awesome card from set 7 from Arcasia's Island. But opting to play the location, you've got the John Silver on the board. You need to respect that, and you need to make Eric respect that. And so we do that easily with putting down the mine. We also have a knight on the board, and that knight, his name is Doc, will be able to potentially deal 2 damage to something and see if we can make some headway here. All right.
Where we go. There's
okay. Yeah. So opting the move, choosing to target the Pete. So Pete will take 2 damage. Has 2 left because it is currently hanging out with his friend Ursula down at the Hidden Cove. Which, if it's hidden, why would 2 people be there? Shouldn't it just be 1 person or nobody?
I don't know. And then it's just a cove.
Yeah, it's like it's a public cove. It's not a hidden cove. Come on now.
Yeah, and then now we have a hypnotize coming down. The hand pressure that Emerald puts on in some of these decks is really starting to take its toll here. That Cobra, I mean, in this scenario, probably not a card that you're so much interested in the lore gain for, but 4/4 is when you're playing against a deck with hidden coves or a hidden cove that you want to get off the board. That 4 stat line and the strength is big.
It is.
And so it definitely hurts to lose that.
And it's very clear here now that the MVP for Eric in this match is that Hidden Cove. It has dealt so much additional damage through challenges. It has dealt with problems that would have otherwise stuck if it wasn't for that Hidden Cove. Eric has to just be so happy with the value that he's getting with this Hidden Cove so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we have a Calhoun come down. Calhoun, not a terrible card to have here. I mean, it can survive a storm with its resist, do a little work on that Hidden Cove. But I feel like Dan is just consistently 1 strength short of what he needs to clear that cove in 1 turn.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's a card you hate to see in the mid game here.
Yeah, it's almost like Dan needs a Hidden Cove of his own.
Right?
Oh, yeah. We see Prince John, greediest of all. And boy, oh boy, is Prince John quite greedy. Let's see how much value we can get from this. How many cards? Now, we do see in hand is a Tinkerbell for Eric. So that is going to certainly present a burst of damage that's going to hit the table. We do see, the mine will go away.
Clean up that mine.
All right, yep. And you see Eric flicking through that card, deciding. All right. So Dan is turning the card sideways. Okay. Interesting choice here.
It's the Chromacon. Hey, if you need a way back in the game, you need a way to draw cards. Unfortunately, you're giving your opponent 1 more card each time. And this is a huge gamble against a discard deck, especially with a Prince John on the board, because you're drawing cards, they're drawing cards, but as soon as they draw into a discard card, it feels bad. So I mean, Dan trying to keep his hand as empty as possible here to avoid triggering that Prince John is something he might be looking to do.
Yeah.
I think we have an empty hand. Because you drew the Chromacon and then played into that.
And of course, interestingly enough, Dan played the Forbidden Mountain. Can you believe it? The shout out to Dan from the Forbidden Mountain as Dan plays the Forbidden Mountain.
There it is. And now Tinkerbell Giant Fairy coming down, doing 1 damage across the board. There's only 1 card there, but it's going to take that damage.
Oh yeah.
And then immediately into the Hidden Cove.
My goodness, a coved Tinkerbell. What a threat. What a scary, scary thing. This Hidden Cove just working overtime. We see, Eric saying, hey, you know what? Prince John is Prince John is beefy too.
Yeah, Prince John, not a card you usually see, challenging into things. You usually like to protect him or use him for lore late game, but 12 or 13 lore here against an Amethyst deck, honestly, when you're on 3, starts to become just a little scary, especially when you can drop things like Library with 8 willpower, on the board that'll take some time to clean up. You start to draw into goat bounce range, and we know Dan's running the Cobras as well. So here's another location on the board, another Forbidden Mountain. That's 12. Well, we have 5 damage on that one.
There's currently
I'm squinting.
There is 5 damage on that one.
But it's going to take there's only 1 willpower left, but it takes 1 character dedicated to that location to clean it up. Yeah. And then you have another 6 willpower there to clean up. So every lore here starts to matter, especially when you're playing with giant cobras or goats and things like that.
And we're seeing the location. So as we've seen, Dan's playing we've seen at least 3 to 4 different locations either enter the board or into the inkwell or into the discard. So we know that this is kind of the thing. We've got 2 locations Can that be enough? Can this carry Dan to that 20, to the magic world of 20 lore? And we're going to see, as again, just plucking through, we've got Tinkerbell coming in, waving her little wand, saying, "No, we will push you a little bit further to banishment, you Forbidden Mountain, you."
Yeah, I mean, and we're at the point now where Eric has to start respecting every threat on the board.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are saying, or probably thinking, well, the Cobra, you usually have to set that up because you need to draw the Cobra, you need to draw another card. But when you have the Chromicon on board, you can draw that extra card that you need. So we're just a couple Cobras here from really threatening game.
Yeah. And you think about the reach that Amethyst has. We know that the Cobra is in the deck. How many more are we going to find to get us closer to that number? Dan is, I'm remiss to say that Dan is like fully in the driver's seat. It still feels like both players are trying to like establish control of the board, but Dan's got to be feeling just a little bit more confident right now, given where he's at with his lore count.
That Chromicon, I agree with you, and that Chromicon looms really large here. When you're the beatdown and you're trying to drive the lore total, being able to drop 2 threats every single turn is huge, and especially against a discard deck which has cards in it dedicated to discard. If Dan is emptying his hand every turn, those discard cards are essentially useless. The Hypnotize gets you a card, but that's 3 ink to draw a card. So yeah. But Beast Tragic Hero definitely could swing things here.
That's a big play here. More cards to Eric's hand is going to give Eric the ability to start finding the ways out of the hole that he finds himself in at the moment.
Yeah, somebody once said rule number 1 of TCGs is more cards is better. And Beast, a card around since set 2.
Right.
Finding his way back into the meta. He's been in and out of the meta. He's always around, as evidenced by his price. But we're seeing him a bit more now.
We are. It's interesting. Like I feel like the prevalence of Beast, it's like an opposite to the prevalence of Ruby. So like if Ruby's prevalent in the meta, like Beast tends to kind of fade into the background, and then when Ruby's like not necessarily there, it seems to be like, okay, well, I guess I can poke my head around again and not have to worry about these meta Medusas and stuff.
Yeah, no, I will highlight sequence here. We sequencing here mattered because John Silver had resist 1 there. Because of that location on the board, we cleaned up that location after, so sitting with 1 damage instead of 2. So just it's important to sequence things properly when Prince John's on the board. So we'll see if that extra damage matters, but now we have a library on board. So again, John Silver at resist 1 with another lore. That Calhoun is going to come in.
Interesting.
Clear up the Tinkerbell. That Ursula is a threat you want to get off the board, but again, sitting in the cove has that extra willpower. But cleaning up a Tinkerbell with a Calhoun and getting that 2 lore off of it seems really good.
Okay.
And that's a lot. That's 14 willpower. Giving that Calhoun a target really. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the right choice, but definitely looms large here. Calhoun.
I was going to question a little bit because there was the option to move that Calhoun to the library and then to do the challenge that it did to then get it to draw a card. But I mean, what was drawn there was needed, and that filled that spot nicely with that ink that he had left. So that might have been, this might have been a very fortunate turn of events. I don't know if there is much else that can be done here that can stop what's about to happen. We've got a John Silver with 2 resist with 2 lore. We've got 2 locations, as you noted, of in the teens of willpower. So we do see the Forbidden Mountain being sent away by that Space Pirate Pete.
But and worst case scenario, Dan now has 2 cards on his turn to draw into one of those Cobras to kind of finish things off. So that
may have been an
that storm will definitely do 1 damage because of that that resist 1. So should be sitting with 2 damage counters on it. But resist is such a tricky thing to remember sometimes, especially when characters gain it and lose it because of the locations and you're moving fast. So understand how people can forget about that.
Certainly, and it's interesting to know. But to your point, it's important to know these things, and because that might have cost that could cost Dan the game if he's not careful.
That's true. That is game on board if John Silver is still there.
All right, we do see another library come down and a ferry ship, the card of the hour, ferry ship.
Oh dear, back over, and that is just a lot to clean up.
Yeah, can we do it? I mean, let's find out if if Eric can piece together the puzzle to prevent that 1 more lore that will give Dan game 1, and then give Eric the ability to be on the draw on the play rather going into game 2.
Yeah, so much willpower to clean up, but so many cards in Eric's hand. That beast doing work, getting extra cards. We have, Deceiver of all there that can
Yeah.
sing something. Oh, I'm trying to. I mean, but what do you use
I mean,
to?
if you have Zeus, then Zeus could help
And
here.
that's as Zeus, you kind of need it.
I think Zeus is going to be big if he can have maybe more than
Doing
one of those as well. It's hard to tell. I can't see. I do see a Mr. Smee at the front of Eric's hand, but I don't see much else. But there is, as you pointed out, quite a few cards. So we do see the thinking about it. I believe he was thinking about maybe singing with Ursula, the Deceiver of All, but opting instead to attack with the Beast, or challenge with the Beast rather, into the library.
And I'll talk about something here too. Like, let's say hypothetically, Eric doesn't have, like, knows he doesn't have what he needs to clean it up. There is something worth when you're a competitive player thinking through the lines and trying to, maybe the line this turn is not necessarily, I know I can't win this game, but I'm going to see if I can maximize my damage so that if I end up at a scenario where I could potentially clean things up, I'm used to thinking things through. So
Exactly.
playing
Yeah.
things out like this is always a good mental exercise in
It
order to
is.
improve your play.
Yeah, I mean, you're about to go through potentially two more of these games. I think the more, to your point, the more you practice it, you'll get to replay that coming up now. So we do see that the game did go to Dan there. So congratulations to Dan for taking game one. We're about to jump in here. So I always like to ask this question, Liam. I want you to pretend like you're Eric.
Okay.
You get to be on the play now. What are you looking for to try to get a strong start, to try to claw back and get game two for yourself?
I mean, so we talked a little bit about it last game, but you need to get your highest statted characters on the board as early as possible. So you're gonna mulligan hard, I think, or alter your hand very, very aggressively to try to find a Smee on turn 2 would be huge. Hidden Cove, even early game, we saw how big that was. That'll give you a little bit of extra strength, give yourself some sticking power. And then, of course, if you can get a Diablo shift on the board early, because here's the thing that I noticed about Dan's deck. We saw a ton of locations. I don't know how many there are, but if you four up a lot of the ones that we've seen, there is a lot. You got to give something up. And I suspect that one of the things that may have been given up is a lot of the removal that we see in Steel.
Yeah.
So without that damage-based removal and without, other evasive characters, that Diablo looms really large. And if you can get a Diablo shift on board on turn 2, being on the play, you're setting yourself up for the long game and just giving yourself all of the answers. So I think if it's me right now, knowing what I know about these players' decks, I think those are two things I'm thinking about. One is trying to get well-statted characters on the board early with that Smee. You don't want to be doing things like playing Prince John on turn 3, where you're giving up those stats. A Hidden Cove is also something that would be good. But really, I wonder how many answers, besides Seven Dwarves Mine, but again, Seven Dwarves Mine, to set up that 2 damage, you need to get the dock on board, you need to get the mine on board, you need to have the ink. So I think getting a Diablo online early game here would be very strong.
I would, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I would be in the same frame of mind. And as we see on screen, I love these kind of, for those of you that maybe not as familiar with the game, just to get a little bit of an insight as to what each of the decks are doing. So we saw on the last slide, we had Diablo as a focus, Prince John, and when it comes to Dan's deck, Dan is operating with a Mines deck, and it's using cards like Dock to utilize it. It's also feeding into Dan's strategy, which is to superpower his John Silver. So why not use a card that not only superpowers John Silver, but hey, maybe I can deal some additional damage with it. And if I can use these docks to great effect, I get to move it into the mine, and that could help to alleviate. You pointed out some of those removal spells, or the removal cards rather, those actions that really help to get rid of a board presence. Maybe we don't need as many of them because we have Seven Dwarves Mine. Maybe we can live in a world where we can be okay with that as an option.
Another interesting point here is, as we're right underway here, getting that Bayou on the board right away. One other thing I'll note is, part of the plan for most green steel decks, unless you're playing some aggressive pirates, and there's that Smee on turn 2, like we talked about, didn't see the Diablo on turn 1. But one of the things you're trying to do is apply hand pressure. Looking at Dan's deck, especially with the Chromicon, one of the things that indicates to me is like this deck is looking to just drop a ton of high willpower things on the board with those locations. And so when you're playing a deck that's planning on dumping its hand at some point in the game and just sitting on no cards, so you can play cards like Dock, so we can use the Chromicon and just flood the board, like your strategy doesn't necessarily work. And so that's one of the things we saw in the mid and the late game is there were scenarios where with Prince John on the board, Eric against a control deck is going to force a heavy discard, start to draw cards off the Prince John, but that doesn't work against this purple scale deck.
Yeah, that's all fine and dandy until it doesn't do the thing you want it to do.
And here we're seeing, I think, the game plan in action where we already have, what's that, 10 lore or 10 willpower on the board.
Yeah.
That is going to force a response from Eric or just accumulate passive lore every turn.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we're seeing some. This is what the oh, we have a second
There it
bumbling
is.
mate. Okay,
we talked about
yeah,
getting a lot of stats on the board is key, and now that's 6 on the board that start to clear things up.
yeah. And Aeromeister, hey, thanks for hanging out with us. Yes, PS locations. That's what me and Liam been saying. So we love to see it.
Yeah, I have an admission to make. I kind of asked for this deck because I
Oh,
wanted to see it in action on the screen.
I knew it. I knew it. I had a feeling. Yeah, you were. I saw you out there whispering. I had a feeling.
But here we are. I mean, again, if you can get 6 strength on the board by turn 3, that's really good against this deck, and that's what Eric has done here. So, willing to bet a pretty aggressive hand alter in order to make that happen.
Yeah, and okay, so we chose the amethyst Chronicon to be the card that we will sacrifice for the giant cobra so that we can get ourselves that additional lore. I want that kind of came in clutch for Dan earlier, so I wonder what the apprehension is. I mean, we're looking at the hand. We do see that he would have had to have chosen either a dock, which I don't think is the right call here, or 2 locations, and the locations are doing pretty hot for him. So maybe that was the right play.
Yeah, it is interesting. So when this deck actually won, or a version of Purple Steel, it wasn't the locations version, won the Hunter Burton tournament, taking down Aaron Rubin, the reigning champion, in the finals. And one of the rules that the player there played by was every time you play Giant Cobra, you discard. You just take advantage of the lore every single time. And before you know it, you put yourself, within striking distance. And so, yeah, the Chromacon interesting to discard, but
okay,
let's see. We're going to get a lot of.
Here we go.
Yep,
Double locations.
A lot of lower cost locations on the board.
All
Cobra
right.
going in, cleaning up that Smee.
And we love that 4/4, the 4 strength, 4 willpower on that giant Cobra is quite strong in this particular matchup.
It's such a well statted character.
Yeah.
For turn 3. And also, yeah, chat shout out to Stephen Mejia. I neglected to mention his name, winning Hunter Burton there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. Shout out to Stephen.
And this is a combo you hate to see. It's Prince John singing discard. So not only will we dump that card out of Dan's hand, was that a dock dumped there? I think
that was the dock. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
which I think that puts that. So Dan was hoping to let that dock be the single card played on that next turn.
What an impactful turn. I mean, what an impactful song that was. That not only is that a knight on the board, which then we can immediately move over and deal 2 damage to something, which would be that Diablo, most likely.
Yes.
But instead, and get 2 cards off of it. So that's getting a character on the board, that's dealing 2 damage. That's then, but Eric gets to draw a card off of it, and Dan's entire turn is shut down.
100%.
That was an impactful play.
Yeah, I believe, I'm looking into the future here, Liam, but I believe that when they look back at this match, they're going to find that this turn right here was the beginning.
Books,
yeah, in the ancient texts, this was the beginning of the end for Dan in this one. Let's see if the ancient texts are correct, and we'll see if we can find a way out.
So here we've cleaned up the Smee instead of so Prince John's always a tempting target when he's exerted because he has ward. He sits there, he counts his gold, and he draws you cards and kind of nasty. And usually when it's exerted, you're like, I'm gonna take this out. But opting instead for the Smee here, getting that high strength off the board, leaving the wimpy 1 strength Prince John, even though he has 2 lore. Now we've dumped a ton of locations on the board, and that's the game plan here. Just put all the willpower out and Dan's saying, I'm going to keep my hand empty. I got nothing here.
Right,
we just saw him indicate your sudden chills do nothing, sir.
Notice the illusion of my disappearing hand.
And instead, I'm just going to sit here with these locations and collect lore return.
All right, and exactly that. We start that turn, ready, set, draw. But before we draw, we got to lore, and we were saying, hey, I might try to get 1 more next turn too if I can help it.
Yeah, it's like I see your 4 strength over there, and I counter with my 18 willpower.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So at this point, what I'd be doing if I was in their shoes is I'd be doing the math and figuring out, okay, how many turns do you win before how many turns that I
starts the clock. There's Pete. We're talking about no strength on the board. Here's Space Pirate Pete.
Well, locations are going to suddenly start to float off of the face of the earth here.
Yeah, so I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Lorcana bro Aaron Rubin with it's Pirate Pete. He says every time he sees it played.
Well, you know what? At least you get some warm fuzzies before this thing comes in and starts just waylaying these locations.
Well, Eric needed to get a high stated character on the board. He needs more strength on the board. However that happened, so that's good. And speaking of high stated character, here we have the Cobra. Of course, nothing to discard here, so we're just gonna get that on the board. I think in some scenarios against some decks you perhaps save it, but here you do not want to keep anything in hand with Prince John on the board. So playing that out there, and and
not only that, but that Cobra puts Eric in a position, because prior to that Cobra coming down, oh, never mind.
Oh, there it goes.
All that talking.
Oh, that is
all that talking for nothing. And so we went ahead and we used. We don't talk about Bruno, and we also don't talk about a giant Cobra as it goes to the discard pile.
And not only that, that should net him another card off the Prince John. I didn't see if we got that draw. But
I missed that as well. But we do see more locations just being challenged into. All right, yeah, that Cobra needed to stay for Dan to feel better about this. Dan's got to be feeling just really rough.
Yeah, that Pirate Pete. The Pirate Pete looms large, and then that losing that Cobra too. We don't talk about Bruno, is just brutal, and drawing into a fairy ship. Not a high impact card here. Not what you want to draw into.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is a very, very strong board presence. Now we're looking at the lore count. We've got 12 on Dan's side. As we say all the time here at SSG, the scoreboard is not the only thing you got to look at to determine where you are in this game. And if you're looking at that board state, you look at those count them, 6 characters, and the inability to play actions next turn for Dan. Dan cannot be feeling too good. Oh, goodness. Yep. We see Eric is saying, before we begin our descent to 20, before we make like Skinner and be the first to 20, what we're going to do instead is we're going to make sure that your locations do not give any issue. And so that's what's happening right now.
No, Laura. I see some debate in the chat about we don't talk about Bruno and how it targets the vanish ability. This is a big discussion, and I do believe that the right ruling is what Ermeister's saying. I believe you resolve the card and then the banish happens. So because as you're the active player, yada yada, there's a whole bunch of bag stuff there.
Absolutely.
But in that case, so it would go back to hand and discard, enabling you to draw a card off the Prince John.
And then after the resolution of we don't talk about Bruno, then it would check for the vanish, but the card is no longer on the board for that to happen.
Right. Somebody ping Googly if I might be wrong, but I think that's what I'm going with for now.
Get Googly in here, folks. Bring them in.
But yeah, and just man, look at that wide board, and again another Nottingham here. Just low impact cards. There's.
Let's talk about the decision to play Nottingham as a character.
It's in Bodyguard.
Yeah, there you go.
It's bodyguarding.
Yes,
is what it is.
The cheese stands alone here.
But just so many. I mean,
this is rough. Yeah, we're seeing essentially so we're choosing our lowest questing characters with the highest amount of strength to take out the locations, while turning the characters with the highest amount of lore. And look at that, we're already tied up at 12. I think at this point, I think we just wrap it up. I mean, you want to save some of that time. The timer is an enemy in this game sometimes as well. And it looks like Dan is making the right choice here, saying, look, there's just no way. I'm going to go ahead and cut my losses. I get to be on the play next turn. Good luck to you, as my 15,000 locations will hit the table and I win next turn.
So many locations. As I look back on that match, I think a couple things come to mind. One is I'm willing to bet there was a very aggressive hand alter for those Snees, as we talked about. Getting those 6 strength on the board early is very good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that comes to mind, that turn where we got Pirate Pete down, followed next turn by we don't talk about Bruno to get that Cobra off the board.
Yeah. And what about that dock that was just plucked out of Dan's hand?
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I almost forgot the history book turn.
I will never forget that. I will go to sleep tonight and have nightmares about that turn.
I mean, this game is completely different if that dock is played for a variety of reasons. The damage, the character, drawing 2 cards, like it swings everything right there, and that was just brutal.
Yeah, and you got to wonder. So one of my favorite things about the face cams, Liam, is we talk about this game just not only being about what's happening on the table and in the decks and what's in your hand, but there's also like the psychological element. There's you start feeling tired, you start feeling tilted, as they say, and so you have to wonder, are they being taxed right now? Like, they're playing against teammates. So we've got two teammates. One of them is going to have to deal the victory or get the victory, while the other one has to lose. You've got that game where that turn for Dan, I think, could have potentially affected his mindset. So like going into this game 3, they need to shake it off and they both need to play the best that they can play.
Yeah, game 3s are always so fun because you've seen what each other's deck can do. You've learned the play styles and everything else, and now game 3, you always feel like, all right, this is it. I know what I need to know.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Perhaps your game plan shifts a little bit from game 2. One thing I will note here, I was trying to eyeball Eric's hand to get a cue on his discard. He did keep the Floodborn Diablo,
Yes.
and then drew into the shift line with a couple of the Diablos there. So that line is available.
Yeah. I'm sure the chances of victory have increased here. And immediately bolting for that play line.
We'll take a look. So that Seven Dwarves Mine is pretty big here. If that Diablo does get online, that Seven Dwarves Mine will be able to clear things up. But all locations, literally.
Yes, all plus an item that lets you draw cards.
I'm going to confess something. I have never seen an all location 6-card hand before.
Okay, you know
that is.
I haven't thought of it, but I think you're right. I think that's true for me too.
If you write that down.
Yeah, let's put that in the text.
Put that in my notes.
Yeah, first time ever SSG. Let's do it. We like making history here. And we're looking at Eric's hand. Eric has some options. Eric's got some discard options available that are coming up as these turns move. And again, I mean, just we have a very similar start to what we had last turn, or last game rather. Just dump in those locations.
No, I was gonna say we did shift the Diablo. I didn't see it quest or anything.
That's a good call.
Didn't turn that online. But here we go. Now we'll put it in the Hidden Cove and turn it online. I'm trying to think of what would have resulted in that. What kind of challenge? No, I can't think of anything.
I mean, unless you're worried. No, I don't think there's anything that comes up that has rush in either side of that. That honestly could just potentially be that those nerves that I was telling you about, that stress, like how that game went, because Eric did claw that game at that moment, I believe, and I think that there might be some adrenaline there too. So I think that's always like the unspoken thing here that we always forget. Like, these are human beings, and they have to deal with the emotions and the being under the spotlight. Folks, please remember, like, for anybody who's wanting to like put pressure on these folks, there are literally 5 cameras on them
and a judge sitting right there.
So please, like, I appreciate you wanting to be analytical, but let's have some grace as human beings here.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not used to playing at a top table, it is an intimidating experience. Sometimes this weird guy in a pink jacket's out there like staring at you while you're playing and
looking like the ice cream man out there,
right?
Hanging out with them. We love it.
So the Diablo now augmented by the Hidden Cove, going in and cleaning up that location there, Nottingham. Back over, we're going to get a little bit more passive lore. Cobra into the Inkwell, followed by 2 locations.
My goodness.
There they all are.
Okay.
In a nice little cube, just to keep things interesting. And also a variety here. No doubles.
Look at Eric's face says it. Eric's like, oh my goodness, I better figure something out here. Eric's like laughing about it. Eric's realizing like, hey, look, I got to have an answer because this is going to get 14, real dicey. And 20. I hate to break it to you, but characters that deal 1 or 2 strength in challenges is a very, very difficult way to deal with what's on the board. Eric is potentially hoping to draw into solutions. Okay. Yep.
24 willpower to deal with.
That
24 willpower. And I mean, we could be wrong, but I don't think we've seen a Zeus played yet, so that's not available. And there's another
location.
This is why locations can be so brutal. I mean, they're passive. They kind of sit there. They don't allow you to be aggressive on the board, but the willpower you get for the cost is huge. And now, Eric's going to be looking, hopefully, at another Pirate Pete, something coming down here to enable him to clean stuff up. Now, not out of it yet. I mean,
no, definitely not.
It's 5 lore a turn over there on the other side, but with those 2 Diablos, he can draw next turn quite a few cards.
Yeah.
So let's see. And we have a morph there, so we can set that up. Pete going into the Inkwell because he's on no actions over there. So
and there's morph. This is tough.
Yeah.
So when I'm playing, if I'm thinking about this matchup, the way I'm thinking about it is the amount of strength that I put down needs to equal or exceed the amount of willpower of the things that my opponent puts down.
Mm-hmm.
That math is not mathing right now, Liam, and that's certainly of concern. But to your point, we're not out of it. We just need to figure out a way.
But here's the thing: like, if you can stabilize from this, if you can clear out those locations, like Dan, unless he draws into a dock, I mean, there's not a lot of ways back into things. And let's talk about the Hidden Cove there, augmenting everything. 3 strength there, making a huge difference.
And again, I mean, in game 3 right now, the most valuable card right now, the card that's pushing itself in terms of its weight in gold, is that Cove. It's doing it again here.
Yeah, Fairy Ship, probably one of the worst cards Dan could have talked deck there. It's another location, but it's not very well statted.
No.
I think the Bayou is probably the only thing worse to top deck there. So again, it gives it's something that Eric has to deal with, but easier to clean up.
It
Let's see if
is.
that morph. There's morph into
Oh,
that
there's a
beast.
beast.
And normally you like to protect him, but in this case, no downside here to using
Absolutely.
him to
In fact, I'll be frank with
knock into
you.
something.
I'll be frank with you. If I can get some damage on that beast, I might just do it to myself, because if I can have one character take out one location and have
That's
like a
fair.
1-to-1, that's probably the direction I'd be moving.
That's a great point. I mean, there's a line of play here where you sing, Storm or something onto the beast itself to allow it to knock out,
Yeah.
bigger things. So, a really interesting card in this matchup and a great point. And then the Hidden Cove looms here large too, because that allows the beast with its 3 strength to one-shot the fairy ship, where otherwise you'd have to devote 2 characters to it. So, Hidden Cove, a hidden gem, since it came out. But
I would say the worst kept secret in secrets. Okay, like in the history of secrets, it's not that hidden, guys. It's very public, and there's four characters hanging out at this thing. So
that's funny. It isn't new, this meta. We've seen it around for a while, but when it first came out, I think nobody paid too much attention to it, and then it's just been around.
It
quite
was
a few
like part of the
now.
branding, we talk about don't be fooled by a name, a hidden cove. It's not really hidden, it's barely a cove. So that's fine, but it's doing the work, it's making the difference. You've got a 3 strength set of birds here, you've got a 4 strength beast on the table, and at this point Eric is well on his way to stabilizing.
Now so 2 cards off the dock there should have netted quite a few cards from those Diablos.
We missed some triggers, didn't we?
We did, I think, but again, moving quickly. Eric still has plenty of cards in hand, and 13, but 4 cards. With 2 Diablos exerted, 4 cards is a lot. But here we get that Seven Doors Mine cleaned up, some damage on the library that'll stick around. Library, great card for drawing you cards, but not when you have so few characters.
Absolutely, yeah. And so it looks like Eric maybe noticing that they had missed out on some of the draw and saying, hey, now I'm drawing this time. Oh, there's a Cobra. We go to 16.
All right.
Okay, so you're saying there's a chance. Let's find out if that's true.
Yeah, and we got it. So we have 1 left. I know the library's probably going to take it out first. You like to slide that over, just in case.
Absolutely.
But that library will not be around too long.
No, it is not. Okay, so target.
There it is.
No, yep.
And now we see that vanish ability.
Yeah, actually take effect.
Yep.
Funny enough.
Yeah, I play the storm on it, and then the player realizes, it's not a Cobra. It's just sand. As it melts away into your discard pile.
Oh my goodness. Oof.
But again, so it's an interesting note here. We talked about how that library would probably be around in short order, but not putting it in there, what that allows Eric to do, because one of the rules in your turn as you sequence is you always want to draw cards first, and you want to get perfect information before you start making choices about what to do with your resources. And so not putting that in the library means that Eric can use the Storm Rage on first, draw a card, get perfect information before he chooses to use what he's going to use to exert and challenge in. So just another note there on sequencing.
Yeah, it's so important. That's the difference between the good players and the great players, is affording themselves that additional information to make better choices from over the course of an entire turn. Speaking of making better choices, there are so many choices in Eric's hand right now.
Yeah. And again, here's the other, I want to make another note about top tables. It's so much pressure on top tables, and having people staring at you and being on stream, especially if we're not used to it. But these missed triggers and stuff, they're happening all over the place. At every event, out there in the room right now, they're happening everywhere. The only reason, and some people, they don't even realize, they don't even know. We just have, the advantage when we're watching, from our